boy, what a historic night. Tuesday, November 5th, will go down as President Trump wins the presidential election, and he didn't just win it, he won it in a landslide.
Yeah, every swing state, I believe they considered 7 of the states swing states, he won every one of them. Won the popular vote, more overall votes around the country. So sometimes you can win the presidency, and not win the popular vote because of the way the system works and winning states and stuff. He won everything this time, which is a huge mandate for Trump to go in and do the things he says, that he's been promising for the last 2, 3, 4 years to do. So it looks like he's got the green light. And boy, he's been busy that first week since the election, lining things up.
Oh, and you alluded to, he got 312 electoral votes, part of the Electoral College, right? Vice President Harris, 226. Okay, and so you mentioned that sometimes people win the Electoral College and get elected president without even winning the popular vote. That's actually been the case historically, that anytime a Republican candidate has won, the Democrats have actually won the popular vote. President Trump didn't just win the popular vote, and why it's currently still probably being 100% calculated, 3.3 million more people voted for President Trump. And this was by far the most anticipated election in United States history. Vice President Harris spent $1 billion.
And still went into debt.
And went $20 million into debt. And so I don't think this had so much to do anymore with whether or not people liked President Trump, because the information had been overwhelming. I think it had to do with Americans can't live their everyday life. And whether or not you consider yourself a conservative or a liberal, the fact is the majority of Americans have spoken. They don't want litter boxes in classrooms. They don't want girls or boys playing in girls' sports.
Right.
They want to be able to go to the grocery store and put food on the table for their family. And they spoke in overwhelming fashion. And since Election Tuesday, as you see the people that didn't want President Trump elected, they're absolutely losing it. I mean, they are losing their minds. But if we looked at the fact, Hamas has already called for an end to the world in the Middle East. Hey, listen, I mean, let's not downplay that, because you're not seeing that anywhere. This is one of the biggest headlines we should have from the last 2 years. Hamas has called for an end to the war in the Middle East. That is insane. Iran-backed Houthis announces ceasefire. Putin says he's ready to work towards peace with Ukraine. All of these foreign affairs that have essentially tripled America's national debt, bankrupt middle-class Americans, not allowed us to respond to a hurricane crisis in our own country. All of those issues essentially are solving themselves in the last week, but people are still not happy. As a matter of fact, you see pharmaceutical CEOs are losing their minds right now.
Well, yeah. Well, they've been gouging Americans for the last 4 years. And, during the whole COVID crisis, they were the ones, telling the hospitals what to do, basically. And so there needs to be a reckoning. There needs to be a cleaning up of the system.
I'm going to be honest. This was the first time that I was excited to watch The View. Because from The View, leading into the election, racists and bigots and idiots, well, then you found out that blacks and Latinos and Amish and gays everywhere voted for Donald Trump. So now it's no longer that you're racist and you're bigot and you're fascist. Now we're stripping rights away for women. And now the attacks from the left are being pinpointed towards women who voted for Trump, blacks who voted for Trump. They're literally going against their own rhetoric as far as what they claimed Donald Trump and his supporters were. But at the end of the day, I'm going to consider it this, the greatest political comeback in American history, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it confidently. Because for the last 4 years, we've been afraid to say it, but I'm going to say it. America is so back, baby.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about it. And I think we can thank God for that, because there were at least two assassination attempts. One that he miraculously survived by turning his head at just the right time, or his head would have been blown off. Grace of God, in my opinion, is the only thing we can rack that up too.
And you also see some of the extreme violence, like against President Trump's granddaughter on Twitter, which, you know, she tweets and stuff, and then people will be calling for hoping she gets shot and stuff. But the crazy thing is, you can already look at the team, the anti-establishment, non-Republican team of talented, qualified individuals that President Trump is already building. And on top of that, looks like we're going to have a real viable potential solution for the border crisis, and who he just appointed at the border. I mean, it's
I mean, day one, they're already putting the team together. And you mentioned he's crossing borders. It's not just all Republicans. He's brought in RFK, you know, a Democrat, to take over and to try to clean up, you know, the Food and Drug Administration and all that stuff, because that's RFK's, that's his powerhouse place. That's what he really focuses on. And he's going to go in there and probably do a great job cleaning that up as much as you can. But yeah, in every area so far, he is lining up superstars to run different parts of the country. And hopefully we'll get back on track and be doing pretty good. I'm still waiting to see what kind of craziness happens from the left.
Sure.
You know, if there is, you know, something they've got in store to try to derail, you know, the country and stuff. So, but we'll see.
It'll be interesting, but the American people have spoken, and next week, we're not going to go any further into this, but in what was by far the most celebrated, anticipated, spent, budgeted election in American history, where you had, like I said, illegal immigrants voting, you had states where ID was not required, you had Blacks, Latinos, Amish voting at an all-time high.
Yep.
But 28 million voters are missing from the 2020 election. It couldn't be any more obvious or clear the 2020 election was stolen, and we're going to cover that next week on Cup of Coffee. But hey, we're going to move on.
I did notice it was either an X or something from Elon Musk, where he put out a map of the states that Harris won. Every one of those states were a non-ID state, right? Which means non-U.S. citizens could vote, or maybe dead people can vote, you know.
And it's no longer like conspiracy theories. Like, these are facts. You can't hide them anymore. And on top of that, in some of these Senate races where you're seeing late changes to who's winning those, you're seeing more votes casted in these municipalities, in the Senate races, by a large margin than you're seeing for president. And in some cases, you're seeing more votes casted than there are registered voters in those areas.
I'm calling BS on those, and I hope the Trump people go in and
it's no longer like just the Trump people. Like, that is the leader of the great American comeback. But now you have so many qualified people that say it's no longer about me, my political affiliation. Like, this is America's last hope.
Yeah.
Right? And at all cost. And you're going to see over the next, I would say over these next couple of months, probably a great pushback, a great resistance. And there's a reason why, as soon as the election was final, there was no longer the rhetoric from our leaders about the bigotry, the danger, the Hitler. Those things were no longer a focus. And so there's something going on. You know, there's no doubt there's something going on. But stay tuned next week as we cover a short look into the 2020 election. But if you look at Governor Mike Kehoe, he won big time, 59.2% over the Democrat Crystal Quaid, who had a lot of support. I mean, she was busy. But one thing that Governor Kehoe has campaigned on, has been promising a lot of Missouri business owners, a lot of developers I've spoken to over the last 6 years, is that his goal is to end Missouri income tax. He wants to become competitive with surrounding states, Tennessee for one, and say, you realize how much a person who retires, whether it's from the state or whatever it is, if you retire in a state that collects state income tax at whatever rate that is, you could move to another state after working your entire life in Missouri and save 3 to 4%. It's a no-brainer. And so that's something that I thought stood out about Mike Kehoe, that, man, if you end the Missouri income tax, that'd be a great thing for Missourians.
Yeah, for retired people in Missouri, for sure.
Especially. All right, another thing, Amendment 3, passed narrowly, and I'm just going to say this, there's a lot of people that disagree with this, but that is a travesty. Whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, this was an evil bill, and it absolutely strips away rights from women, families, as well as parents. And there is no recourse if this stands. As far as botched surgeries, things against doctors, in the form of malpractice. There is no recourse. There is no any map that will allow you to sue or to go after medical care and provider. That is what the people voted for. And I don't blame the people because, again, it's smoke and mirrors. What they sell it to you as is, and for all the people saying that President Trump is taking all these rights away from women, listen, President Trump is Republic, leave it up to the states in regards to that. And so that's a sad one for me because if this stands, we're going to be looking back at this day as one of the darkest days in Missouri history.
I don't see that one lasting for a whole long time because I think when it goes into effect and people see what it really is and not what they sold it as, again, smoke and mirrors, I'm guessing Missourians will want to go and change this. But in addition to legalizing abortion and not having any recourse for the women who have abortions, if something goes wrong, they cannot go, go back and get recompense from the health providers. But in addition to that, opponents of this amendment say it establishes the reproductive rights could also potentially allow minors to receive transgender medical treatments without parental consents and more and more and more of that stuff. And I think Missourians, if they ever find out what this bill truly is, are going to be just crazy mad about how this was sold to them.
And another term, you mentioned taking those rights away because a child, whatever age they believe, is able and capable of making that decision, they would take the child out of the home. So I agree that once people see the totality of what this constitutional amendment leads to, I don't think that all Missourians are going to be as on board as they were when they understand what they were sold when it came to voting.
I agree. And as soon as the Missouri Supreme Court put this on the ballot, millions, tens of millions of dollars came in for abortion rights supporters, to put this campaign on, and it just overwhelmed, I think, the other side. And I think that's basically why it passed. But again, we'll see how long that lasts.